Welcome to Retro Skill Modelling. This is part A of Revell's cruiser ship AIDA, scale 1 to 400. Now, it's been a few days since I've done an update for the build, and the main reason for that is I had a bit of a disaster. I managed to spill a whole cup of coffee all over the model. So I had to wait until it dried out after I cleaned it, and to see whether the lights and everything still worked. Luckily, the lights did work, but there's lots of coffee stains on the white areas of the ship. So as I'm working it, you are going to see quite a lot of paintwork that has to be redone. But I'm going to be doing that in stages as I go along in the build. It's just one of those things that happens. So anyway, in part A, I'm going to be concentrating on the stern of the ship and putting in the tennis court and the ball court area, as well as the exhaust flumes as well. So let's jump into this and see how I get on. To start things off, I'm placing on some decals onto the clear part. So this is part of the tennis court. So as you can see, it's just a plain clear part, and this griddle work goes on. So I'm just placing these decals on in the normal way with a little bit of water to soften it, some decal solution before placing them on. And while I've got the decal solution out, I'm going to be putting the decals on for the lettering for the name. Now, you can obviously paint these if you want, but they do supply decals with the kit for this. So you may as well use the decals. The decals are quite nice actually, so there's no issue with them being too heavy. And what I liked as well, each letter was an individual decal. It wasn't all clumped into one decal, so I was able to put them on individually. I'm using Revell Aquila 382 Wood Brown, and this is for the panelling on the sidewalls. It's going to go underneath the basketball and tennis court area. Then I'm switching to 89 beige just to give it a bit of contrast colour. And I'm also doing the same on the sidewalls here where the nameplate is. This actually builds up the stack. There's a house in here. I've decided to drill little portholes in the doors. There's a series of doors and windows. There's little indications where a porthole should be, so I thought I'll just drill them in before I place them on the model, just so that some light can come through. I decided to build the wall on the model itself and not on the unit before it all gets placed on top. This just makes the top part of the unit to go on a lot easier, and I'll have a stable base to sit on, and I will have a little bit of time just to move it around to make sure it fits. And once they're on, I can then put on the actual top part, the next set of decking, just making sure that the wires are coming through, that I've got enough room to work on the next stage. I didn't like the raw edge of the glass here, so I decided to paint it white. In the end, I did actually take it off, but you'll see it in having the white on for a little while before I decide to take it off. So I'm going back to the clear parts. Now that the decals are dried, it's time to assemble. So I'm using the white PVA glue or canopy glue. As I said before, this just helps to prevent fogging of the clear parts. I'm now building the house in that holds the flume or the chimney. The top part has a grid slide as such, and that'll have light leaking through, so obviously I don't want that. So what I'm doing here, I'm just taking a bit of plastic card, a bit of scrap that I've got lying around, and just backing it onto the part before I assemble it all, so that no light comes through. And once that's dry, I can start assembling. So you can see the grid there, the vent area there. If you are lighting it, you're going to have to look out for little things like that and think about paint bleed and things. So it's just something to bear in mind. Now, because I added the extra layer of plastic card and having to trim down the roof for this actually sits inside the model. file it down micron at a time just to make sure I get a tight fit, and obviously I don't have to fill it for any light bleed. So just taking tiny bits off at a time. I realised because this is backing up onto the tennis court or basketball court, whatever court it is, I'm not sure, that there's no light going to be coming through to it because this solid piece at the back of it. So I'm having to drill some holes so I can get light to come through. Now I want a little bit of light come through, not too much, but more than a porthole, let's say. So I'm just opening these up with my snips, and I'm going to put in some LEDs right into that point. So it'll fill up the hole, but there'll be lights coming out of it. And then I can move on to the very top of the unit, putting in the chimney stack. That goes in the main unit first. I did try to put it on the grid top, but it didn't quite work, so it's better just placing it in there. Now I didn't have to back up that grid work with a bit of plastic card because obviously it's going over the solid unit at the top there. And once everything is in place, I'm using 06 tar black just for the insides of the stack itself. Now I can return to the clear part. There's decal that goes on top just like the sides. If you're doing this, make sure each part's completely dry before you return to it, because it requires a lot of handling and you don't want to be breaking apart your decals through mishandling. There's clear parts that come out of the rear that goes into the main clear part structure. I'm only putting these in at the moment as a placeholder, just to see where one, where the unit sits, and two, where the lights are going to be coming through. So I've placed 3 LEDs inside it, just coming up. These are green LEDs, 3mm ones. So I made them up just the same way as I make them all up, soldering and so forth. But now, before I can place it on, I just have to attach it to the main wiring of inside the ship. Now, doing this like this, I have to be very careful that I don't get any solder drops coming off and going onto the ship. One part just popped off there. Luckily, it went inside. As I say, you've got to be careful when you're doing it. But once it's all connected, I can then start placing that onto the main deck. Then placing in the inner clear parts, there's 2 side walls and a retaining wall that goes in here. Each part does have its own little location point for it to sit in, so I didn't have too much difficulty getting these into the proper position. There's a mast that sits within inside the clear part. Unfortunately, the carpet monster decided to eat that, so I'm going to have to make my own. So I've simply got a cocktail stick here, and I've got my Dremel out, and I'm just going to sand this down to the proper circumference first of all, and then taking a little bit of wire and just putting it around the an area that's going to be sticking out at the top. This just gives it a little collar. And then I'll simply paint it 05 white. Now this is a lot larger than any of the length-wise, but it will be cut down near the end of the build. Now I'm just placing in the mast inside the area before I place on the clear part on the top. The little collar is going to come off now. Obviously I need to take that off so that I can get the top in. I didn't think about that when I was building, when I was making the mast, but luckily once it wasn't on so tightly that I couldn't just prise it off. So then the clear part goes in. It was a little bit tricky to get this in because the diameter of the cocktail stick was very tight, but I didn't want to take it down any further, so I really had to press it in to get it in. So in the end, I just took it off and placed it in the clear part first and guided it in. I should have done that way in the first place. It was a lot easier before fitting the actual clear part. So this is going to bring part 8 to an end. Didn't get as much done in this part as I wanted to, but there was a lot of process involved with adding the extra lights, the light blocking solution, and of course the mast. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for the rest of my builds, or indeed for this build. Subscribe to the channel and you'll be notified of any updates. Hit that like button and of course leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.